Hey guys, this is Tony, and instead of doing what we usually would do this week for the New York Files, I decided we would do something a little different. You know, it's funny, I've been to a lot of places in the last 7 seasons, but one thing I never really talked about was some of the unique shops I've come across. So today I wanted to talk about some of the retro game shops I visited. And so I guess for me, I'm going to start with the pre-show shop, because there is a shop that I visited before I started doing this series, and that shop is Chaotic Games in Alpena, Michigan. Chaotic was one of those places that it was how do I put it? It was local, so it was nice to have a local game shop to go and pick up some of the old games, but the thing is that it was also more convenient, as I put it. Now, of course, they weren't going to always have the games that, everyone wanted. I mean, the store didn't even have imports. Just to tell you how small and niche this concept was in northern Michigan. But in some respects, and this is something I'm probably going to say about a lot of the places, it still did have a friendly staff and a good selection. But I've been going to that place. I went to that place from the time it launched, which I want to say was about 2009 to 2010, right around that area, up until the time I left. So about 7 to 8 years I've been going to that place. And again, nice place. I really like it. I probably would say maybe about a good quarter of my games came from that shop. So, okay, now let's get into some of the shops I've been to when we started doing the show. And surprisingly, the first one I went to didn't happen until the start of Season 2. And that was 1UP Games in Bay City. 1UP Games, it was interesting. It was kind of one of those last minute things where I came across it as I was in town. And, like I said, retro game stores in northern Michigan are kind of a niche. You don't really see them that often, at least in some of the smaller towns. In the larger towns, like Traverse City, Bay City, Saginaw, those kind of towns, it's a little more common. You would at least see maybe one or two. But yeah, this was another good place. Really great selection. And I only got one game from there, and that was Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. I never went back, and I've constantly wondered if I should have gone back and at least picked something else up before I left. In other words, essentially, should I have gone back and did another Bay City episode? But yeah, those were the main two I remember visiting while I was working on the Michigan Files. So the first 3 seasons. When I moved from Michigan to New York, that situation changed a little bit. When I got into Albany, it was a little different. Now, of course, as many people will know, the New York area, because it's so populated and so diverse, there is, of course, going to be a lot of variety shops. So you are going to find a lot of retro game stores in the area. And just in the Albany area, the Schenectady area, right around that whole entire area, there is a lot of them. So, so this is going to be a lot to talk about. But the first one I really want to talk about, actually the first 2 I want to talk about, are interesting cases. Because it's probably the first time I've ever seen a retro game store franchise, if that's an interesting concept to bring upon. And of course, I'm talking about Pastime Legends and J Street Games. Both of these, again, are interesting cases. Pastime Legends has 3 locations. There's the one in Albany, the one in Troy, and the one in Scotia. And when it comes to J Street, they have 2 locations. They have a location at the Colony Center over in Colony, and they have another location over in the Crossgates Mall on the other side in Albany. And again, it's an interesting situation because it's something you never consider. But I've been to all the locations for both those stores. And if I had something to say, I would say both of them, again, really nice stores, great selection, great staff. When it comes to their differences, I would say this is where Pastime might have a little bit of an edge over J Street, but at the same time, J Street has somewhat of an edge over Pastime. So they're kind of evened out. Where J Street doesn't carry many imports because it's, from what I found out, against some of their policies. Pastime will carry some imports. And in fact, they'll also carry some reproduction carts as well. Now, where they don't have comic books, and by that I'm talking about Pastime, J Street carries comic books. They also carry mangas, which is interesting. But in terms of locations, J Street has 2 solid locations, whereas Pastime, they have, in my opinion, 1 solid location and 2 decent locations. I'm not going to really sugarcoat it, but the Albany location's a little cramped. And again, it's not a real problem. It's just, it does feel cramped when you walk in there. And I can understand. The space is a little small. You're going to kind of run into that issue. It's just how they utilize the space. And then with the Troy store for Pastime, it's way too huge. Like way too much space. Easily enough space to get lost in. But again, those are just minor nitpicks. Other than that, both those stores are great. So those are the 2, like I said, franchise retro game stores. And one I would actually recommend more than the other. In this case, I'm going to say Pastime. Mainly because Pastime will offer a little bit more of a variety of types of games than J Street. And J Street also offers that variety, but they don't offer the reproduction carts nor the imports. So let's move on to Forgotten Freshness. Forgotten Freshness is a retro game store over in Mechanicsville, and it is a really nice place. Very, very professional looking. It is also somewhat expensive, but the staff over there is really, really friendly. Again, something you're going to hear me say about all the stores, they're really friendly. And the thing is, like, that store has a few things that I've never seen and I probably will never see again in my life. This store has, PC Engines. This store also has Neo Geos. So it's interesting to come across stuff like that, and mostly with imports too. They have a lot of imports. This place also has 3DOs. It also has CDIs, I believe, if I remember the last time I was there. CDIs. But my point being, it's a really nice place, a really wide selection, and again, a really courteous staff. I really would recommend that place if you're in that area. Another one that is a good one to talk about is Replay Games and Movies, which is over in Half Moon. And this place is also very supplied and very varied in what it carries in supplies. That it's kind of overwhelming sometimes. Now, this is a place that's mostly a movie store, but they sell games on the side too. And to let it be known, this place I ended up getting my second Dreamcast from, and it was very nice. The staff really friendly. Again, selection a little overwhelming, but still very, very good. And it's kind of on an interesting corner too. It's like one of those stores that you usually see attached to a building. Like you'll see a gas station with a Subway attached to it, or a bank, or trying to think of another place, an insurance company, something like that. So it's interesting to see a store attached to a gas station that would do something like this. So I guess that's its quirk, in other terms. And I guess with that being said, let's talk about the last place I really do want to talk about. And this, to me, is personally one of my favorite places to ever visit. The last place I want to talk about is Vortex Games. Now, Vortex, it's interesting because Vortex, you could say, has some of the problems that Replay does, where it has so much product that it can be overwhelming. But where it differs is how they set it up. It's not like it's towering over you and, it's just in stacks and stacks and stacks. With Vortex, everything's kind of laid out like it's in a collection. Like, you could look at it and say, wow, isn't that amazing? Vortex over the last couple months has been a really great place. And I first got introduced to that place last fall. And let me tell you, I immediately got in good with the owners, Chris and Otto. They're really nice guys, really helpful, really supportive, really funny people to talk to. Really interesting too. They've had a lot of interesting stories about stuff that's happened at that store. But I've gotten a lot of stuff from that place, and it's a really, really great place. They carry the imports, they carry the comic books, they'll carry mangas, they'll carry games for almost every system. They carry rare versions of games. They carry tapes, for based, around certain products. They carry figurines, amiibos, all of that. If you were looking for a certain gaming peripheral or just a piece of pop culture, they probably have it. Whether it be up front or in the back. If you ask them, they probably would have it. But this is a really great place. It's one of my personal favorites. I try to at least make it to make an importance to visit at least once or twice a month just to see what they've gotten. And I've gotten a lot of good stuff from there. I've gotten Wonder Project J2. I've gotten Ogre Battle 64. I've gotten most of my imports from there. I would say everything with the exception of Mario Kart I've gotten from there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I wanted to talk about some of the gaming stores and just kind of my experience with them. And again, this Vortex is one of those places I really recommend. If you're ever in the upper New York State area, visit them. And tell them Tony sent you, of course. But no, just give the place a check out. It's really worth your time. And yeah, with that being said, this is Tony. I'll see you guys next time. Take care, everyone.